Привет, I'm Chuck Olenek, a Ukrainian-American baptized with the name Yaroslav. That's also the name I use in the historical reenactment group, the Society for Creative Anachronism, where I'm known as Yaroslav the Persistent, or Yari. So I've been putting together material on Slavic folklore and mythology and Slavic culture, and finally decided that I ought to be making videos and putting them up on my YouTube channel in order to share this information with folks that are in the society that might be thinking of going Eastern European. So I was working on videos about the Slavic Halloween and the Slavic Day of the Dead and the Baltic Day of the Dead, and I was looking over my notes and I saw a familiar name. It was like vaguely familiar, and I opened up the document and started reading and realized there was a connection between these particular days and the wild hunt that's found throughout European folklore. So I kind of backed into doing this video, so it sort of connects with the Night of Veles and which is Halloween, and Dziady, Day of the Dead, and the Baltic Velines. I came in through the back door. So okay, the wild hunt. It's a folklore motif that shows up in a bunch of Northern and Western and Eastern European societies, and it appears amongst the Germans and the Celts and the Slavs. And there's, you know, when you go through all these folklore things, these are like various motifs, and it's kind of listed in there. Wild hunts typically involve a chase led by a mythological figure, escorted by ghostly or supernatural groups of hunters or animals engaged in pursuit. The leader of the hunt is often a named figure. It's associated with Odin in Germanic legends, but it could be a historical or legendary figure like Theodoric the Great or the Danish king Valdemar Atterdag, the dragon slayer Sigurd, there's Welsh characters, or just some unidentified lost soul. The hunters are generally the souls of the dead or ghostly dogs, sometimes fairies or valkyries or elves. There's a number of different beliefs about the wild hunt. Seeing the wild hunt was supposed to forebode some catastrophe, maybe war, maybe there's plague, or it just might be your own death. All right, and people who encountered the hunt might also be abducted into the underworld or the fairy kingdom. In some instances, it was believed that people's spirits could be ripped away from their bodies as they're witnessing it, or you might just be abducted in your sleep and just taken away. The concept was developed by Jacob Grimm, you know, the Brothers Grimm. In his 1835 book, it was on like the basis of comparative mythology. Grimm thought that a group of stories represented some folkloristic survival of Germanic paganism, but other modern scholars basically say, hey, there's comparable myths throughout Northern Europe, Western Europe, and Central Europe, so get over it. Grimm popularized the term wildjagd, or wild hunt, for the phenomenon. All right, let's turn to the Slavs. Western Slavs, it's known as Divoki Han or Shtvani, that's basically Czech for wild hunt or baiting. Dziki Han or Dzikilo, Polish, okay? It was also known amongst the Sorbs, not Serbs, Sorbs, and amongst the South Slavic Slovenes, Divyayaga, wild hunting party or wild hunt, but it's also known amongst Belarusians. Where, again, it's Wild Hunt, but I chickened out when I saw the name in Cyrillic. As Belarus used to be part of Poland, the motif might have come from Poland. It might have been original. In Slovenia, it was believed that Jarnik, or Jarilo, also called the Volchi Pastir, wolf herdsman, led the hunt. I don't know, because he's supposed to be a god of fertility and of carnal love, so I don't know about that one. In some variations, a wild Baba leads the hunt. In others, the leader of the retinue is a female character called Petra. So when I started digging through my notes, I saw the name Velines. That seemed real familiar. That it was a Baltic version of Veles or Volos, the Slavic god of cattle, wealth, magic, and the underworld. So he's supposed to be in charge of the dead people. And I saw an alternate name, Velnius, the god of the Lithuanian Veles, or Latvian Velis, basically zombie, all right, the phantom of the dead. And this Velines or Velnius, he's supposed to be a one-eyed prophetic trickster capable of raising whirlwinds and leading the host of the dead across the skies. Velnius is akin in type to basically what the Germanic Wotan or Scandinavian Odin, and he's identical to the god Patolo or Pikolos, and you'll find this guy under a couple of different names in Old Prussian and Lithuanian sources. Then my notes led me to Velines as the Baltic Day of the Dead, observed November 2nd. But on that day, spirits were supposed to return from the land of the dead and could wander about. And, you know, if these were spirits of family, they were invited in, meals prepared. I covered that in the last video. But after the meal with the dead relatives during Velines, they were then told to go home, go back to where you came from. I mean, obviously it was done politely, but the family didn't want the dead people hanging around. And that kind of leads back to that Slavic thing. Remember, there was this tradition of wearing masks, which might have been protection from being taken along by those already dead to join them on their journeys. So in following threads and going down rabbit holes and mixing metaphors, I guess, I found that the Wild Hunt was supposed to be more of a seasonal thing. My research was saying October, maybe starting as early as end of the harvest, which would kind of probably depend upon what part of Eastern Europe you're in, but definitely October, November. And then I saw in another source that the Wild Hunt could be taking place around Yule, which would again explain Slavs wearing masks at that time. Well, okay, so we covered the Wild Hunt. All right, it's going to be on to other topics. I hope you stick around. I hope you subscribe, because it would be really nice. And until the next time, do pobачення.